Hello, folks. This is your host, Tammy Tuckey, and you are now listening to the Tiara Talk Show. We bring you rare interviews with the makers of Disney magic. Whether they be singers, actors, Imagineers, animators, they have all made their mark on the Disney name. Be sure to check out the show notes, other episodes, contests, our social media pages from Facebook to Twitter, and more on our official website at www.thetiaratalkshow.com. Are you looking to plan and book an upcoming Disney vacation? Contact the Tiara Talk Show's official travel agent, James from Destinations in Florida, by visiting destinationsinflorida.com/tiara for a free quote. The link is also included in the show notes on our website. All guest opinions are theirs and theirs alone and do not represent the opinions of the Tiara Talk Show or the host. The Tiara Talk Show is not associated with the Disney Company. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode. And from all of us here at the Tiara Talk Show, have a hoop-de-doo day. I'm excited to welcome this week's Tiara Talk Show guest, actress and singer Erin Mackey, to the show. Welcome, Erin.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's great to have you on the show. I started geeking out, I'm going to tell you, not because you're involved in the Parent Trap. That's a fantastic thing. I love Parent Trap, which we're going to get to in a second. But
Absolutely.
You were invited to Mary-Kate and Ashley's fashion party, 1999 as
1999.
Jenna. Oh my goodness.
It was like a half-hour video. Yes.
Oh,
I did.
At fashion show, and then you go to a fashion school with Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen, then you go to a actual fashion show. And what was that? How long did it take to film that? Because it's only 30 minutes.
Right. Yeah. I want to say it took maybe 3 or 4 days that I actually shot. I want to say Mary-Kate and Ashley shot a little bit more because they had more scenes to do. But there was like 2 friends. And that was me and this girl. Her name was Joanne.
Have you kept in touch with Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen is probably the golden question right now.
I can't say I have. No. We did have a great time, though, working together. They were very sweet and very down to earth. And we're the same age. So we got along very well. But no, I have not kept in touch with them.
And now on to the Parent Trap, because
Great.
I saw that there was a BuzzFeed viral post that went off about you. And did you see that?
I did. It's so funny. I feel like every couple years, people sort of rediscover that there was someone who played the other twin opposite her, for the purposes of the way they needed to put it together, and she needed a scene partner, and just kids can only work a certain amount of hours as well. So, but it's funny. Every few years, it kind of resurfaces as sort of being this big internet buzz.
I grew up with both films, the original 61 version with Hayley Mills and the 98 version with Lindsay Lohan, and I love them dearly. Both dearly, and I guess I secretly prefer the Lindsay one more. I guess that's because that's just me with the modern take on it too.
And
but
Nancy Meyers is the director, and she's just such a fantastic director. And Parent Trap, the one that I was in, was just so romantic as well as being like a fun kids movie, and it's just a beautiful movie. So, but I grew up with the 61 Hayley Mills as well, and I loved that movie.
Was there any point in the filming that they said we would love to film Let's Get Together, the actual song, because it only makes a small appearance with Lindsey humming it in the movie? And I was always curious because I thought that would have gone, as they say, viral back in the day if it came out. Music video would have been released and a soundtrack. So was that ever discussed, or did you ever hear anything about that?
I didn't hear a lot about it. I think I remember it just was not part of the film that they wanted to make, was creating a musical number. So but I don't remember hearing any big discussion about it actually being in the film, but Lindsey Humming It, they certainly wanted to pay tribute to the previous version of the movie. So they wanted to, find a way to incorporate everything.
What was it like to learn how to fence for those Camp Walden scenes?
Yeah, well, there's actually, for most of the fencing, it is doubles. It was 2 kids. Actually, one was a boy. And 2 kids who were excellent fencers. They were fantastic. But Lindsay and I had to learn kind of just sort of basic skills. And it was really fun. We were actually shooting on a camp, an old camp in Lake Arrowhead. So it really was kind of like being at summer camp. But I remember those scenes it took a good amount of time to film that whole sequence because it was very complex. So I remember wearing the fencing costumes quite a bit, and they were like really difficult to get into.
I always wanted to try it ever since I've seen the movie. So that was one thing I thought was the most complicated part of the film, besides the greeting handshake with Simon Coons, who plays the butler. So you had to learn. I'm guessing you had to learn this handshake because you're in a far shot with Lindsay doing it at the sunset on the dock, and I thought, that was pretty shot. So how long did it take to learn that? I still want to learn it. I should have learned it by now.
Oh, it's so funny. Some people, people do know it. They learned it. I saw a video online a couple months ago of someone who did it at his college graduation with like the guy giving him his diploma. It was a great video. And the band started playing
the
He
song.
Believed in Magic. So it's great. But the handshake, I remember learning it. We actually started filming in London is where I started filming. And I learned it probably my second or third day of being on set. There was a choreographer who taught me it. And I was a dancer when I was a kid, so I picked it up pretty quick. Because they do it at the airport, Annie and Simon Coons' character, Martin, that's his name. And so I had to learn it for that day of shooting. First, it was with Simon that I did it with, and then once we got to the camp scenes, Lindsay and I had to do it together. And we got it down really fast.
Has anybody come up to you and said, "Can we do it"?
No, but oh my goodness, that would be fun. I might mess it up though.
You still know it though, right?
I do. If someone did it with me, I could probably bust it out.
I'll have to learn it, and hopefully if we meet in person, we'll just have to randomly do it in New York City, because that's usually where all the viral videos come from anyway, so.
Deal.
Can you imagine the internet would go crazy, Erin, if that video surfaced? I would love to see Lindsay hopefully meet up with you sometime in the future. When was the last time you got to see her in person or even talk with her on the phone?
Oh gosh, well, Lindsay and I did this movie I was 11 when I did the movie. And we didn't keep in touch a whole lot after the movie, though we did run into each other in LA doing a table read of a movie when we would have been like 16, 17. So that was the last time I saw her.
I love the cast of this film. We got Dennis Quaid, Lisa Ann Walter, Simon Coons, Ronnie Stevens, Natasha Richardson. Unfortunately, Ronnie Stevens and Natasha Richardson have both passed since the film has come out. What is one of your most cherished memories of working with?
Oh gosh, well, I just remember Ronnie just being so kind to me, and being Lindsay's double. It meant that most of the time my face wasn't on camera ever. I mean, it was the back of my head, but I did a lot of scene work with all of the actors because, like I said earlier, kids can only work a certain amount of hours. So Lindsay and I could only work 9.5 hours each. So she would kind of come and do the bulk of her stuff, and if they could do the filming from both sides, from both angles, so an over the shoulder shot and her close up, they would. But a lot of times they would run out of time. So then I would come in sort of for the next part of the day, the second half of the day, and sort of finish up all of that. And that's like very common with kids and just the, limitation on the hours you can work. So I just remember Ronnie always he just would be so kind to me, and he just really made me feel included and like, a real scene partner with him. And Natasha, I loved working with her. I spent a lot more time with her than I did with Ronnie, just because there's a lot more of the film with her. And she just was so wonderful. And I mean, one of my favorite things, I still have it, was she gave Lindsay and I both lockets at the end of the shoots. They were these beautiful gold Tiffany's lockets with our initials engraved on it, like Hallie and Annie have in the movie. So I still have my lockets, and that's really very special to me.
I saw some behind-the-scenes featurettes on YouTube and on the DVD. Lindsay says that Dennis was always cracking you guys up with funny jokes and silly little pranks. So what was the most memorable of those jokes or pranks that kind of sticks out in your mind today?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, he did. He played a lot of pranks, and he was a lot of fun on set. One day of him sitting down at the piano, I think at the Ritz-Carlton where we were filming, and just busting out Great Balls of Fire like totally Jerry Lee Lewis style. And that was really fun. And Lindsay and I danced, and that was really, really fun. And I still remember to this day.
And I can't imagine working with Elaine Hendricks, who is the evil villain in the show as Meredith, and everybody's supposed to hate her, and she has all these pranks pulled on her in the show, and she has that one scene where you guys are pushing her off on her little bed into the lake.
I know. Quite a trooper. She really was. And I mean, we really like pushed her into the lake, and there were, I think, there were like scuba divers out in the lake to like push her back. So we could reset. But no, she was great. She was so much fun. And I remember us telling her like, Elaine, you should, when she's like supposed to move in her sleep, we were like, you should pick your nose. You should pick your nose. And she like tried it once for us or something. It was really late. I mean, it was like all kind of through the night until the wee hours of the morning. And it was we just had so much fun. And we had to keep changing clothes over and over again because our pants would get wet. Yeah, but Elaine, she's great. And I remember the first day of filming in Napa where she joined filming, and I rode in the car with her to the set, not knowing it was her because we hadn't met yet. And she looked like she was like 16 years old. She had like pigtails and no makeup on, and she was gorgeous, but she looked like a kid. And then she like went into the makeup and hair trailer and came out, and she was like this stunning model superstar. I was like, oh my gosh.
Well, it seems like there's a lot of reboots and remakes happening right now in Hollywood. And I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of brought Parent Trap back into the loop again. Would you be interested in making like a small guest appearance?
Of course. I love the film. I'm so honored that I got to be part of it. And, it was my first job ever as a kid. So I learned so much, and I met some really great people. I have a very, very special place in my heart for Parent Trap. So I would be part of it in any way people asked.
And I love that I found out you are a theater performer. You played Glinda for the longest time in Wicked after being an understudy for a couple months. I love musicals. And now you're starring in Amazing Grace. What is the experience like to put together a Broadway show? It just seems so difficult in my eyes, doing something, 8 times or 7 times a week.
Yeah, it's very different than film. You do the entire story every night, 8 times a week. But I love theater. Theater's always been something that I loved. Even when I was a kid and I did Parent Trap, I grew up listening to musicals, loving musicals, doing musicals. I love to sing, and I love stage work. So that's really where I kind of as a kid always wanted to really pursue my career. And so I've been very fortunate. And right now I'm doing Amazing Grace on Broadway, and it's fantastic. It's a lot, putting up a new show is a totally different experience than replacing in a show like Wicked, which is already set. You already know kind of how that show comes together. But for a show like Amazing Grace, or I've originated 2 other shows, Chaplin and Sondheim on Sondheim. And for all of these shows, you're creating it for the very first time. So you can say, well, instead of walking over there, I want to try walking over here, or can we change the key of the song? And you have freedom in that way, which is really nice, and not always the case for stage work. So I've just had a blast. I love what I do, and I feel very, very grateful that Amazing Grace brought me on board. And Amazing Grace is clearly a song that we all know and love, and is very much a part of our culture and our society. But what people don't know is the story behind the man who wrote the song, and his life was truly stranger than fiction. It is epic. He lived in the 1740s. A man named John Newton, and he wrote the hymn. And he really, we have the lyrics that saved a wretch like me, and John Newton was truly a wretch of a man. He was a really terrible guy. He was a slave trader in the 1740s, and through a series of divine interventions, he really came to see the light and realize that how he was living his life and what he was doing to others was wrong. And he eventually became one of the leaders of the abolitionist movement in England, which consequently really affected our history in the United States. We think of abolition, and we think of Abraham Lincoln and these different people in our history, but John Newton really affected all of those people in order to be able to come come about to the idea that slavery should be abolished, that it's wrong and it's a terrible thing. So, so John Newton, it's truly a fascinating story. And I play Mary Catlett, who was a real person. She was his childhood sweetheart. And we've really been able to create her as a really progressive, kind of fiery, very loyal woman. And it's just been such an honor to play her.
So now I have 3 Disney questions I always ask my guests. They're called the Fab 3. So we'll start with the Donald one, which is, as a child, what Disney film was one of your favorites to watch over and over again?
I have to say Sleeping Beauty. Once Upon a Dream song. I loved Aurora. But then very, very close second is Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast.
And our goofy question, what Disney character do you think would be your best friend if you met them in person?
Ooh, I like that one. Aladdin.
And our Mickey question, if I asked you to name any Disney song at this very moment, what immediately comes to mind?
Part of Your World. That was the first one that came to my mind.
Thank you so much, Erin, for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Love was made for me and you. Love was made for me and you.